This video is brought to you by Movie Mavens. What's up, Wisecrack? Michael here. Today I come to you with a simple question.
Who lives in a pineapple under the sea?
That's right, we're talking about SpongeBob Squarepants. Perhaps no animated children's show has dominated culture quite like SpongeBob has. Running for 21 years straight, SpongeBob is a juggernaut that has captured the hearts of children, teenagers, adults, and of course, yours truly. Which brings us to the real question at hand. Why? How is SpongeBob Squarepants able to speak to the existential concerns of both recently potty-trained toddlers and meme-obsessed 30-somethings? While we could bring up the show's penchant for double entendre,
Patrick, your genius is showing.
Where?
and its expressive animation, we think the answer is rooted in something more sociological, the concept of childhood. So join me for this Wisecrack Edition on SpongeBob Squarepants. And before we continue, I want to give a quick shout out to our friends over at Movie Mavens for sponsoring this video. If you're looking for more smart stuff about SpongeBob after you finish our video, go check out the video they just released today. And after that, you can check out all the other awesome shows they've reviewed in depth in the past, which includes some of our favorites that we've yet to cover. If you head on over to their SpongeBob video, make sure you like, comment on what to review next, and subscribe so you will be entered into their Movie Lover giveaway, earning the chance to win a mini projector so you can watch all the stuff we've covered on the channel anywhere on the go. In fact, you can even watch our videos if you hook up your phone. The giveaway only lasts until September 28th, so don't forget to subscribe and comment that Wisecrack sent you. All the official rules and details will be on their page, so check it out. The link to the video is in the description, so click here to learn more. Now, back to the show. Now, for those of you who haven't spring breaked in Bikini Bottom, here's the deal. A sentient sea sponge lives in an undersea pineapple and spends his days getting up to hijinks with his starfish pal Patrick while holding down a job as a fry cook. Much hilarity ensues.
I demand entrance into your club on the grounds that I am not a weenie.
Hey, Reg, how's it going?
You were saying?
To make sense of SpongeBob's enduring legacy, we need to talk about childhood. The concept of childhood as being a special time in our lives during which we need to be nurtured, loved, and fed bagel bites while playing Mario Kart is a relatively new phenomena, as we've noted in a previous video. That's not to say that in the good old days children weren't loved, just that this love often came with a hard hat and a canary. According to historian Philippe Ariès, our awareness of the particular nature of childhood developed in the Western consciousness over various stages. Back in medieval times, for example, children were viewed essentially as adults in miniature, who were able to hold gainful employment, join the convent, and even get engaged at the tender age of 7. Fast forward a few hundred years to Puritan times, and children were viewed more as the property of God, who were very much at risk of being led astray by the red guy downstairs. Consequently, you needed to scare the crap out of them to keep them in line. By the late 19th century, Arias argues, along with the rise of psychology and universal education, we start to see our modern view of childhood, one in which children are to be guided past various developmental and educational milestones. And this is where one Robert Squarepants comes in. See, most of today's children's media is built upon these modern views of childhood. These stories target highly specific age groups, using characters and storylines that map to their demographics, development, and education. In other words, whether it's Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood or everyone's favorite football head, storylines usually depict characters dealing with the typical problems which can be mapped along to the real-life development of the children watching.
How do you feel when you can't see your friends?
You know, lessons about taking turns,
Who wants to push me? Ooh, I will, and we can take turns.
or dealing with bullies by going full Karate Kid. But SpongeBob Squarepants rips up this playbook entirely. For one, the sponge guy himself is rather ambiguously aged. While his driver's license pegs him as initially 13 years old, he bears many marks of adulthood. He lives on his own, has a full-time job, and takes care of his pet snail. Incidentally, according to this metric, I am 66.6% an adult. Moreover, many of the show's storylines aren't exactly aimed at kids.
Then who was flickering the lights?
Nosferatu!
Not exactly your typical kiddie fare. At the same time, SpongeBob is definitely a kid at heart. He loves blowing bubbles, can't pass his driving test,
Floor it?
No, don't floor it.
Okay, floor it!
and embodies kid-like naivete.
One time, I saw this magician, and he took this thing, and anyway, And then he told us, if you believe in yourself, and with a tiny pinch of magic, all your dreams can come true.
This paradox is intentional. The creator, Steven Hillenburg, pushed back when Nickelodeon wanted to overly kidify SpongeBob by making him attend school. According to Hillenburg, the network actually wanted to make the show Hey Arnold under the sea, something the world surely does not need. Interestingly, by making SpongeBob an explicitly unconventional blur between child and adult, Hillenburg gets to explore various historical conceptions of childhood. For example, our naive SpongeBob often embodies the Puritan model of a child that needs to be scared straight from any mischief. In one episode, Mr. Krabs warns our wide-eyed protagonist about the danger of the hooks.
Aye, the hooks. They dangle down and draw you close with their pleasing shapes and their beguiling colors. And just when you think you've found the land of milk and honey, they grab you by the britches and haul you way up high.
Wait, what is happening?
And then they cook you, and then they eat you, or worse.
Yikes. This horrifying / dramatic speech parallels many popular old-school Puritan teachings about kids falling into sin. Preacher Thomas Brooks, for example, issued a similar warning to kids about a scary pit of sin, writing that, "He who will be so bold as to attempt to dance upon the brink of the pit may find by woeful experience that it is a righteous thing with God that he should fall into the pit." Pit or hook, both warnings bear nightmare-inducing implications for your average tyke. But SpongeBob draws on more than just a Puritan conception of childhood. Arguably, anytime SpongeBob dons his Krusty Krab uniform, he's being seen as a little laborer, embodying the medieval conception of childhood. SpongeBob is absorbed with his work and obsessed with his perpetual status as Employee of the Month.
Mr. Krabs gives you that award so you'll work harder for no extra money.
That is not true, Squidward. He gives it to me because I work harder. You could win it too if you tried harder.
Our intrepid fry cook, oblivious to his own exploitation, is willing to do anything for his job, and is easily goaded into destroying his friendship in the fry cook games.
Don't forget, he called ye yellow.
Like an aspiring medieval child nun, SpongeBob's job is all important. The show, like most children's television, sometimes also embraces a more modern perspective on childhood, showing SpongeBob dealing with developmental issues like learning to tie his shoes and realizing that stealing is bad.
We have to confess?
Confess? Are you out of your mind? Do you have any idea what they do to people like us? We're not talking about some dumb mail fraud schemer hijacking here. We stole a balloon! And they're gonna lock us up forever!
Indeed, the network seems to have eventually sort of gotten its way, and that SpongeBob, like your average kid, does occasionally go to school, albeit a boating school. This setting allows SpongeBob to encounter issues more typical to children's shows, things like cheating.
It's quite all right. You can cheat.
No, I'm cheating.
That way, SpongeBob.
I'm cheating.
Cheat that way.
Now, big caveat. We're not saying that by making SpongeBob's age fluid, Hillenburg intentionally meant to explore Ariez's historical model of childhood. Rather, it seems that by letting SpongeBob move seamlessly between the domains of childhood and adulthood, along with history's various views surrounding these realms, Hillenburg allows the show to speak to kids and adults at the same time. Kids get to watch SpongeBob gleefully break the rules, while parents can crack a smile at the double meaning of the word hooky.
We're gonna go play hooky!
In fact, some jokes address kids and adults at the same time, like when Patrick teaches SpongeBob how to act like a grown-up to impress his grandma.
What are you gonna tell Grandma?
I'm a grown-up.
No ifs, ands, or buts about it.
A man's gotta do what a man's gotta do.
And then you get behind her and I'll push.
Patrick, we didn't say that.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah, something tells me little kids aren't quite registering the grand matricide joke here. This ability to address multiple audiences at once didn't start with SpongeBob. Rather, it's an aspect of children's literature and media dating back to the 18th century. According to scholar Kimberly Reynolds, when publishers began printing children's books, they realized they had to satisfy the demands of two markets: the kids that consume the stories and the parents that buy them. According to author Barbara Wall, having to satisfy two distinct audiences in a single text often leads writers to variously employ three distinctive narrative styles. First, there's the double address, when the narrator talks over the child addressing the adult in the room. Think Patrick's joke about killing grandma. Then there's the single address, when the narrator talks solely to the child. Think of those gross out close-ups that SpongeBob employs. Things that get the kids laughing but aren't exactly witty.
Beautiful, huh? How beautiful do you think this is?
Okay, some of them are pretty good, which by Wall's definition would make them examples of the third narrative style. Dual address, or talking to both children and adults simultaneously. While other children's properties may both separately and dually address kids and adults, SpongeBob's ability to seamlessly switch between all three narrative styles is what makes it so special. But why is SpongeBob so unique in this way? Why don't we find jokes about doing drugs or killing loved ones or watching porn in other children's media?
Gary! I was just looking for the sports channel, Gary.
And why don't we get as many feel-good, silly moments that adults and kids can both enjoy?
Get off! No one's looking.
Well, the answer might surprise you. It's not that other children's media can't do this, it's just that a lot of it intentionally doesn't. This is because most of the children's media landscape is dominated by one company and its single idea of childhood. Any way you slice it, Disney has had a monopoly on children's media for the past century. The company has almost single-handedly lobbied to change copyright laws so that its iconic franchises wouldn't enter the public domain. And it's gobbled up almost all of its closest competition, buying the likes of Pixar, Lucasfilms, Marvel, and 21st Century Fox. Disney's chokehold on modern culture is so strong, both for children and adults, that 8 of the top 10 grossing films in 2019 were made by the Big Mouse. And the creepy thing? For almost 100 years, Disney has relentlessly pursued the same single vision of childhood: cuteness. You know, lovable, kind characters with big round eyes. In other words, everything that SpongeBob is not. In fact, Walt Disney was so aggressive in his pursuit of all things cute that he made numerous enemies out of both his own animators and critics. Scholar David Forgash details how Disney's push to make the 7 dwarves as cute as possible, contra the source material, created massive opposition, even leading the animators to draw pornographic depictions of the characters in protest. Depictions that, for scholarly purposes, we wish had survived. But as Chilean essayist and ex-Disney kid Ariel Dorfman explains, the mouse's soulless desire to make all things cute wasn't simply born out of an obsession with saucer eyes. It was part of a larger cultural package Disney was selling to the world. Children, in Disney's construction, live in a state of pure, Eden-like innocence, which was reflected in the aesthetic of the cartoons. This aesthetic, Dorfman contends, would be used to sugarcoat any ugly truth Disney wanted to sell, from less bad things like the nuclear family to very bad things like colonialism. Case in point is this infamous comic book in which Donald Duck's nephews visit places like Aztec Land and Inca Blanca, racialized parodies of Central and South America, only to find the natives there simple-minded savages who willingly give away their treasures. But what does this all have to do with SpongeBob? Well, just as Disney has been promoting a very specific brand of childhood, so too is Nickelodeon, and at least partially in reaction to Disney's reign of innocent doe eyes. But whereas Disney's brand is based on perpetuating a particular myth of what childhood is, Nickelodeon's brand is based on giving children more agency. According to Linda Semensky, a producer at Nickelodeon during its heyday, the network was groundbreaking in that it rigorously focus tested each show on children. If kids didn't like a show, it wouldn't be picked up. In Semensky's view, this all reinforced Nickelodeon's underlying philosophy that kids lived in a grown-up world, and that it was tough to be a kid when you had to follow all the grown-up rules. Unlike Disney, Nickelodeon preached a gospel of childhood that believed kids should be free to play around, have fun, and stand up for themselves. Whereas Disney balked at anything that broke from its cute, idealized form of childhood, Nickelodeon embraced everything from gross-out humor to avant-garde animation styles to storylines far outside of your typical children's narrative. In other words, a show like SpongeBob could only exist on a network like Nickelodeon. Its strange tiki-inspired aesthetic resembles nothing of Disney's highly regimented animation style. Not to mention all those weird moments in SpongeBob that break the fourth wall with live-action components a la Patchy the Pirate. And let's not forget about all the gross-out close-ups and adult topics in the show. I mean, really, the series broached the topic of gay marriage in 2002. That's not to make Nickelodeon out to be some kind of mom-and-pop animation shop. After all, it's owned by Viacom, an empire in and of itself presumably just as eager as Disney to make a buck. And that fact brings us to an aspect that Aria has never really delved into: the way our modern conception of childhood has been shaped by consumerism. SpongeBob offers children something more robust than Disney's bland vision of childhood. So much of it is about transgression. SpongeBob isn't a kid, but he's not quite an adult. He drifts between hypercompetence.
First I draw this head, then I erased some of the more detailed features. And 1, 2, 3, a circle thingy.
And hyper incompetence.
Oh, SpongeBob! Why?
Toilet humor abounds, as well as a whole episode devoted to the concept of curse words.
Krabs is,
Do you kiss your mother with that mouth?
In this way, Nickelodeon is offering kids greater agency by letting them test boundaries through an underwater sponge who's kind of like them. Not as much a pure child as companies like Disney would have you believe, but not full adults either. And because we live under capitalism, if kids feel empowered to buy a SpongeBob ice cream bar as a result, more the better. In the case of SpongeBob, this more empowering vision of childhood certainly has been successful. What's more, we'd contend that it's the very reason your Twitter feed continues to be dominated by SpongeBob memes. Memes often made by the very adults who grew up with Bikini Bottom in the first place. While the memes are diverse and fully glorious, they tend overwhelmingly to take the form of reaction memes. This suggests a level of identification between the person sharing the meme and the character, whether we're talking about going into beast mode or feeling confused when people come for us. While SpongeBob's memeability has a ton to do with the show's inventive visual storytelling, the lasting appeal of these images suggests something deeper. Perhaps that SpongeBob endures for us precisely because of the fluidity of its characters, and the freedom they gave us to just be kids without being children. But what do you guys think? Is SpongeBob a revelatory depiction of childhood, or is this face just impossible not to meme? Let us know in the comments. Huge thanks to our incredible patrons for your support. Hit that subscribe button, and as always, thanks for watching. Later.